Good evening, everybody. It is another episode of Scarves and Spikes. We're back. We had a busy week last week, but the three of us are back together. Finally, the reunion has happened. Y'all are excited. I think we've already got some people in chat. So, yeah, absolutely, by all means, dive in. We want to hear from you guys. We have a pretty cool guest coming on today, I've heard. The rumor is. So, it'll be a fun show, guys. We're going to announce a little giveaway as well. But before all that,
cool.
Sydney, Tommy, how y'all doing?
Doing well. Doing pretty good. Looking forward to this match on Saturday against Inter Miami. Not sure what happened against Nashville. Of course, I was up there. Not sure what happened, but yeah. Sad face.
You know, we were all in different places, right? Like we were all watching in different places. Tyler, you were on a man trip, as you explained, I think, to us. Sydney's at the game. I'm at a bar. Usually when it's like a local televised game, we go out and, you know, have lunch and watch it. And then I get an alert. Twitter starts going off, and it says that Scarves and Stripes gets a call out everywhere. And I'm like, oh, man, like I want to go home and listen to this now. So that was awesome.
It really was.
That was the highlight of my weekend.
You know, it was really funny that because the way it happened for me, we're up there. Yeah, we're doing the guys trip. I was in the middle of an 8-hour game of poker. It was like we got going at lunch. We knew we were going to watch the game, and then it just kept going. But I did end up winning some cigars out of it, so that was good. But yeah, so we're sitting there, and my wife called me. I was on the phone with her, and she was telling me about something that happened in the soccer game with our son scoring a goal, and I was like, "It's amazing." Well, right when I was talking to her about it, my brother-in-law sitting next to me, he starts hitting me. And he's like, "Hey," I'm like, "What?" I thought he was talking about like what I had said about the goal that my son scored. He keeps hitting me. He's like pointing at the screen. I'm like, "What?" He's like, "They just called y'all out on the show." And I was like, "Oh, what?" So I had to go back and rewind it. And, but yeah, shout out to Jake Zivin for shouting us out. That was really cool. That was super awesome.
Really Great guest last week. Great to have him on, get us insight, kind of pick his brain about MLS, Atlanta United, his time with Portland and all of that. So great to have him. And like you said, we have another special guest, Tyler, coming up this week, or today, I should say.
We do.
That's what I heard as well.
Yeah, I mean, rumor on the street is Taylor Twellman will be joining us here in a little while. Not long. Not long at all. But him. Yeah, I mean, I think I've heard of him a little bit. So it'll be good. It'll be a good show. And it is funny because, you know, Jake and him are broadcast partners. Jake was on last week. Taylor's on this week. So just I don't know, maybe the pieces falling into place a little bit, but super excited. It'll be fun. We're going to have a great time. And yeah, I'm excited about it. It'll be a good episode.
I thought my favorite Taylor Twellman moment, I have two. I don't know if we'll end up getting to it with him. But the one was during the MLS is Back tournament, you know, the dark times, as we like to call them.
Yeah.
It was at 9:30 start time. I think we played Cincinnati. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't remember what it was. At
Cincinnati or Columbus, maybe.
So it's bright and early, and him and
we
John
lost.
Campion.
We lost.
Spoiler, yes, we lost.
We did.
But Taylor and John just go back and forth about what they ate for breakfast for a good 5 to 6 minutes, and like talking about English breakfast, and like there's not many moments of COVID that like I really was like, you know, it was fun, but like it was like I remember it was like the first time I saw my friends. Like we had like a watch party, like a small watch party. Everybody came over, everybody brought their own brunch thing, and we're just sitting down and we just hear them talking about breakfast for like a good 5 minutes. And I was like, that's one of my favorite Taylor Twellman moments.
That's the content you need in the morning. If soccer's coming on that early, it's like the World Cup this past year.
Yeah.
Breakfast was like vital for all of those soccer matches.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I mean, we got to talk about what are we doing after the U.S. Mr. World Cup in 2017. I mean, that's what a lot of people associate with Taylor as well. But yeah, looking forward to having him on. Should be an exciting time with him. Time to chat with him and get his thoughts on Saturday.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll dive into last week here in a moment. Before we do that, just a quick shout out, a couple things. One, as usual, guys, make sure if you're not already, we would love for you guys to get on the Patreon. The link up at the top. It's also in the chat. For those of y'all that are listening after the fact on the podcatchers, it is patreon.com/Scars and Spikes. We did a really, really cool interview with Tony Annan yesterday of South Carolina Soccer, formerly the Academy Director of Atlanta United. We learned in that interview that he was like employee number 5 for Atlanta United overall. So he was one of the first. And it was really cool insight to get, where he's at now, what he's doing, the differences in college and academy teams, and just really, really cool chat with the guy. So if you haven't yet, be sure to hop on the Patreon and go check that out. In addition to that, next week, one of our guests, we may have 2, I don't know yet, but one of our guests is going to be Jason Longshore coming back on. No introduction needed. All y'all know him, but Jason is getting back on with us. It'll be his second time on with us this year, actually. So
our first
fun to talk
repeat
about
guest,
the upcoming Miami match. Yeah, and because he's going to be on, and because he's another fellow Atlanta native, we are going to be doing a giveaway. It's first giveaway on the main show, so make sure you guys share the channel, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. But it's going to be – the first one is going to be a pin from a local Atlanta artist, I guess you could say, Carmen and Diego. Carmen and Diego, she makes stickers. Diego is her dog, who I think just turned 10, if I'm not mistaken. But the links for her page are down at the bottom. But for those of you guys listening after the fact, on Instagram, it is carmen.and.diego. And then on Twitter, it is at Carmen and Diego. So great stuff that she's making. Great stickers, great pins. We're going to be giving away one of those pins next week when Jason's on with us. So it'll be fun.
Speaking of Twitter and Instagram, of course, follow us on Twitter, Scars, the letter N, Spikes, and then on Instagram, Scars, A-N-D, Spikes. We really do appreciate it. Of course, like and subscribe to us on YouTube as well. We appreciate that as well. And, of course, patreon.com/Scars and Spikes. So you'll get access to that interview with Tony Annan. Interview we did on the U.S. Open Cup. Probably a little bit dated right now, of course. But, yeah, other benefits, other fun stuff we have in store for our patrons. So we got patreon.com/Scars and Spikes. And with that, Nashville.
What went wrong in Nashville? Please enlighten me and everybody else.
Nashville scored more goals than Atlanta, first off.
It's the name of the game.
Yeah. Usually whenever that happens, usually when one person or one team has more points than the other team, they win, except in golf. But I was there, obviously, as I mentioned. Tyler, you were on your men's extravaganza. Tommy, you're at the bar. First off, and this is a plus. Props to the traveling fans that came from Atlanta. They were vocal for the first part of the match, at least. After Atlanta went down 2-0, these kind of died down, as you might imagine. Picked up again.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. Picked up again when Almada scored from the spot. But then, of course, Nashville killed it off. Or put an end to it, essentially, in stoppage time. So, I believe it's 7 straight unbeaten. Nashville are against Atlanta at this current point in time, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to double check. But, yeah, we talked about it. Tommy and I, we talked about it on the ratings video a little bit. Just so many deficiencies, not good enough, really, from Atlanta United by any stretch of the imagination. Not to say the entire team was terrible. I think it's easy to take a look at a full team and take the sum whole of the entire thing and say, oh, the entire team was bad. Not really. I disagree. The entire team wasn't bad, but the players that you expect to step up for Atlanta United didn't step up when they needed to. And Ariel mentioned in the chat, Nashville, that's their first time scoring 3 goals all year. Before that, their maximum obviously was two goals. 8 goals scored coming into the match, and then they hang 3 on Atlanta. Set piece defending, yeah, I mean, absolutely agree. That's part of it. Not the only thing that went wrong against Nashville, but certainly part of it. The midfield, big topic. We can go on and on about the midfield, but yeah, not good enough from Atlanta United. And now you have to kind of pick up the pieces after a week where you lost to Memphis 9-1, a second division team you should have beaten, and now Nashville, a rival in the derby match away from home. You remain on the road and face Inter Miami, a team that maybe have a little more confidence after winning and breaking their own losing streak last time out. So, oh, by the way, they have Josef Martinez, which adds to the narrative, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, not good enough against Nashville.
Light it up, Tommy.
What I'm trying to say. Tommy has his new Joseph Candle.
Who did you mention?
Joseph Alexander Martinez.
So here's my thing, and Tommy, I want you to dive into it too, because we can sit here and try to analyze the match and the tactics and all that kind of stuff. But I said it on the spaces in the short time that I got on after. The midfield right now is, yes, we've talked about it plenty. The midfield is not doing, the 6s and 8s are not doing their jobs to the degree that they need to do them. Almada.
They're more like 6s and 7s if we're being honest with ourselves.
Would you even go that high?
Yeah.
So Almada has no business having to drop back as far as he has in the past few matches that he's played. He does not need to be back there. I mean, kudos to him for putting in the effort, for trying to make something happen. 100%. That's what you expect out of a DP. That's what you expect out of a World Cup winner. That's what you expect out of a player of his caliber, right? He's going to go find the ball. But he doesn't need to be dropping back that far to find the ball. Santiago Sosa, Mateus Osedu, Sejdic when he's playing, we've seen flashes and we've seen plenty of moments where they do handle the midfield really well. Almada can play where he's most dangerous and he can move the ball forward. That did not happen at all in this match. And Mateus said it at the training ground yesterday. I was there and he said, I thought the midfield was good. There are just little mistakes that we need to fix. And I just don't agree with that. And I think the quality's there. I just don't think it was exhibited to the degree that it needs to be, especially in this Nashville match, especially against a team that, they don't score many goals, but they can hit you on the counter really hard. And that's exactly what happened. And you've got to get that spine of the team in check to make Almada, and by effect, Giakoumakis or whoever's playing up top, as effective as they can be. Right now, that's where the breaking point's at. Your wingers, we can talk about Arujo. We will, I'm sure. The left side has done phenomenal. Brooks Lennon has done really well, but it's right up the middle where they're lacking. And that's unfortunate because they want to play out of the back. You have to have your 6s and your 8s playing really well. And right now, Memphis, that was a tragedy. That was a tragedy. And then, of course, against Nashville, it's just not, it wasn't much better. A little bit, but not much better.
I thought we made a blood pact never to talk about the U.S. Open Cup again.
Oh, sorry. My pinky's healed. My bad.
I thought that was just never going to come up. But do you ever look at a lineup and just say, I know that this team is going to lose? And I feel like sometimes when you watch a game or you get ready for a game and you look at who's playing, whether it's especially like in baseball and like soccer where it's a different starting lineup usually, or like who's pitching or who's starting. You look at the midfield and you see that it's not Ibarra and Sejdic. You see that Giakoumakis is not playing. I knew we weren't going to win. It was going to happen. Like it's just very predictable. You knew that the problems that were going to continue to happen. We've seen this midfield before. We saw that it doesn't work. We see that, like you said, that Almada was having to come back and help, which is not where he should be. You know that anyone but Giakoumakis isn't going to get service, and it's just Groundhog Day over and over and over. And I don't like to just call myself out here, but I did throw $100 on Nashville, and I don't ever bet anything usually larger than $10. But I absolutely knew that this was how it was gonna go. because I waited till the lineup came out specifically because I wanted to see if Sejdic and Ibarra were going to be there. If that was there, I wouldn't have even touched this game. But like, you just know what works for your team and what doesn't. And this isn't working. And if you're going to win, and we talked about this on Spaces, and Sydney and I talked about it when we were doing the ratings. If you have your optimal lineup out there, you can play with anybody in MLS. If you have to do any type of rotation, this team is going to struggle. And, you hope that, if you just said, we're not making any changes, this is the lineup that's going to go into the playoffs, assuming we make it. If you're 100% healthy and you trust Pineda to make the right decisions, and unfortunately one of those right decisions is not starting Josetu, then I think that you have a chance to win. But it's more games this year. The playoffs are longer, and you're going to need depth. And I don't think with this lineup, you're going to be able to go very far. I think they've got a lot of work to do in the summer window. I think that there's still value with some of these players that you have currently, like an Araújo. I think he still has value in the market. Sosa still has market in the value, but those are two guys I would immediately look to go move on from and immediately replace with some better players.
Yeah, I feel like we talked about this a little bit with Atlanta United. Are we willing to maybe not struggle, but are we willing to maybe see suboptimal results with this team with the intent of making a real push for improving the team during the summer window? I think Carlos talked a little bit about it on Tuesday. Maybe that intent, adding some pieces to help this team make an MLS Cup run. We talk about Seattle, we talk about Lagerwey, what he did over there. What do we see a lot of times with Seattle? They kind of tread water, for lack of a better term, to start the season. Then they go on their run. Then that's after they add maybe some kind of pieces, a piece or two or three,
zombie
to
sounders.
help them. Yeah, the zombie sounders, and they add some pieces, right, to make that run. And more oftentimes than not, they're in the playoffs, and not only that, they're contending for MLS Cups. So you have a person in the front office who is overseeing things, and he's not dumb. He's been around MLS for years, right? And he knows what it takes to win in this league. And yeah, unfortunately, you want to win every match. You want to bank points, as we were kind of talking about, Tommy, on the ratings show. You want to make sure that you give yourself a little bit of a runway just in case things go south toward the end of the season to get yourself in the playoffs. But as you said, with more games in the playoffs, with an expanded playoff picture, that's kind of the other edge of the sword. With the expanded field, you have more games, and now you have Leagues Cup you have to worry about too, which is another pathway to Champions League that you're kind of wondering, okay, is this team at this current point in time built to make a decent run in Leagues Cup? Which I don't know if it is, especially if, and the good thing is the season kind of pauses in the summer while this is going on. But with the pieces it has now, it's not a bad team. But as you were saying, Tommy, if one or two players go down, like you've seen here with Giakoumakis and to a lesser extent Almada, even though he was out there, you don't have the depth. You don't have the players behind them to be able to step in a next man up situation. So it's very concerning, but you have to hope that in the summer, Lagerwey and Bocanegra put their heads together, and Pineda, of course, put their heads together and say, okay, we have to address this. We have to address the midfield. We need a striker, a genuine backup striker that can score. So, yeah, interesting to see what will happen in the summer and how Atlanta United will address this.
Yeah. After Carlos Bocanegra's comments yesterday, I think it could be a couple of positions that you might be looking at in the summer. The biggest thing I think that was really important that he pointed out was between the moves last year, the offseason, the moves that they brought in, sent out, Campbell leaving, the Moreno and Edwin Mosquera loans, which they do have options, obviously, so they could be purchased by their respective teams. But all of those moves, he said, we have money to play with in the summer. So they have the ability to make moves when it comes time. He did point out that, the DP spots, he said they're so specific and they're so hard to have a like for like sub for your DPs, because your DPs have to hit, your DPs have to be of a different quality. And right now, like we've talked about it a lot, but Miguel Berry, the backup striker spot, just not doing it right now. And does he have the quality? Yes, he's shown it at times at Columbus, but he hasn't done anything right now for Atlanta, unfortunately. And I do think that can't be an excuse, obviously. And I'm not saying that he said it as an excuse, but your DPs, yes, they should and better be of a superb quality, because you only get 3 of them. But it can't be such a gap between them and the guys below. You still have to get something out of your subs. And right now, the midfield's kind of a rotating door. I get it. You've had injuries and everything else. I still think Josedo and Ibarra has been a good pairing. Sejdic and Ibarra seems to be a good pairing most of the time. But I just don't think Sosa has cut it this year so far. Miguel Berry is struggling. The one that I think has really stepped up is Machop Chol. I think Machop Chol has been a bit of a bright spot as a sub. I mean, he wasn't great against Nashville, but he's been better than a lot of the other subs, both on the wings and at the number 9 position. So it's tough, but now you know that you have options, right? Like, you have options come the summertime. You have potential to make some other moves. And I think right now, we talked to Mike Conti a couple of weeks ago, and he said he'd be looking at the backup striker position. I agree with that, but I also think you need to go and you need to hit on a solid number 8. A solid number 8. Like somebody that knows how to play that box-to-box role, is going to handle it, and doesn't necessarily have to have a partner to bail them out of things. You're always going to be partnered up in the midfield somehow or another, but you've got to have somebody that can handle business on their own, because that's what's going to open up the rest of the field. So we'll see, but this Nashville match just was not a stellar moment for Atlanta's midfield.
But you look at Chol and you look at Berry and you look at all the other strikers that we've had in the past. There's too many. Kubo, everybody, they're not getting service. It's just not. And and this has been since Josef Martinez has left, right? The last backup striker that we had that did anything was U.S. Open Cup MVP Brandon Vasquez. And now we see where he is right now. But everybody else hasn't been able to get that service. So what I think about is what makes Giakoumakis so different than the rest. And I think physicality is a big one. He's just a big guy. He's not fast. Like he's not the fastest guy on the team, right? Like I don't think, at least I don't feel like that he is. I mean, he somehow still ends up offside a lot, like Josef did, but like that happens. But he has, I think, some knowledge as well. He knows when to make those runs. And like I go back to it. I mean, he knows how to get in front of players and a slight shove and not get fouled. And you got to find someone. And like backup strikers are good ones are rare in MLS. I mean, like that's just how it is. And then even if they are good, like you get some that catch fire, like Berry with Columbus.
Yeah.
Like Zardes goes down, Berry comes in, is very productive, and then all of a sudden teams are looking at him and saying, this is a great backup. And then goes to DC, and then comes to Atlanta, and we haven't seen it yet. But there's been a couple occasions, like in the Columbus game where he had to start, where there were a couple moments and it was like, okay, like he's just not handling the ball well. Like he made a couple bad passes as well. But I don't know if it's all just on him. Like I think it's just a combination of how they play. And I think that they're playing differently when Giakoumakis is out there playing to his strengths. And we just don't have a guy that's like a Giakoumakis to come in and be the backup here. So
yeah,
gotta hope that we have that luck with him of being healthy, like Josef Martinez was for 2 years until that one night in Nashville.
And this is a good shout too, real quick, Sydney. I want you to hop into. But Mark saying in the chat, Giakoumakis demands the ball, which is true. Yeah. In addition to that, Giakoumakis just has that mentality that he wants it. He wills the ball into the goal at times. I mean, you go back to the first goal that he scored for Atlanta, and he was offside. I don't even know how many times in that match. It was ridiculous. But he kept pushing, and he got his reward. And that's just his mindset. And I think that's as a striker, that's what you have to have in this league, anywhere, but in this league especially, because like you said, the backups behind you, you're not always fighting for your spot. So you just have to want it. And we've heard from day one when Giakoumakis got here that he's all about, like, if he's not scoring goals, he's not happy. I remember being in the locker room when he said, there could be games where I score a hat trick and I'm not happy. That's just how he is. Yeah. That's what you want out of your striker. But you still have to have the backup options for this exact reason that we're looking at right now. He's probably still going to be questionable come Saturday. So who do you start there? That's the question.
Exactly. And and that's the issue, his health. Hamstring has been kind of an issue. You hope it's not a serious issue that's keeping him out for extended period of time. But again, it goes back to, if he can't play, who do you depend on to put the ball in the back of the net? I mean, obviously Barry hasn't been able to do it this year. I mean, put Chol out there. Chol scored the one goal, but other than that, not too much. I mean, Wiley has scored a few goals. Almada, of course, has scored on his end. But it goes back to, though, if Almada isn't at his best, who do you depend on? Who do you count on to get the ball rolling for Atlanta United? So these issues are kind of hand in hand. So, hoping that A, Giakoumakis isn't injured for a longer period of time, and then B, hoping that Atlanta United can get the backup striker situation sorted sooner than later. Whether it looks like Barry getting on a good run of form, or someone else getting a good run of form, or them bringing somebody else in, remains to be seen. But hopefully they get it figured out sooner rather than later.
Cool. Absolutely. And, I see some people in the chat now talking about Giakoumakis, and you got to understand, this is not necessarily just a run of form for Giakoumakis. The guy is a proven goal scorer, right? Like he's done it in the Eredivisie. He's done it in Scotland. He's off to a great start here, and it'll be curious to see how he does going forward, because there's a very important milestone that's coming up that he could tie somebody very famous very, very soon. And that was a perfect segue. So I'm just going to dive into it.
No.
Our man, Taylor Twellman of Apple TV, MLS coverage, formerly of ESPN. How's it going?
What's going on, boys? How are you?
Good.
Pretty good.
Great.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for coming
nice
on.
segue, but I think people were expecting someone actually famous.
I mean, it's relatively famous, right?
In my own mind, I am, Tyler. I'm not sure I really am in real life, but in my own mind, yeah, I'm a legend.
Hey, there you go. That's all you need, though. The confidence is there, right?
Yep, absolutely. What's going on, boys?
Not much. I know you're excited to get down to South Florida with Jake and call the match between Atlanta and Miami. I mean, I'm sure you've been down there before. I mean, what are your favorite kind of spots down the South Florida area, I guess?
I mean, Sydney, I've had family in Delray Beach for 25 plus years. So, yes. and obviously you guys, or anyone that follows me on any social media platform, understands I'm a degenerate gambler / golfer. So South Florida's been very frequented by me in years past. So I honestly, and I know you guys don't want to hear this, but you kind of do. I'm going to land, call Josef Martinez, ask him to sleep in his basement. I want to know exactly what he's doing before the game, because the only reason why I'm doing this game is because Josef plays Atlanta for the first time, and I can't wait.
Yeah.
It's been circled. And we want to get to it. That's the big story, right? But I got a question to ask you, going back a little bit earlier this year, because it's one guy that we haven't talked about on the show yet, and we tend to talk about him every time, and that is Luis Araujo. So earlier in the season, you mentioned that he was the biggest X factor for Atlanta United this season, which is true by all means. Yesterday, Bocanegra was talking about his capabilities and the knowledge that he's better than he's showing right now, essentially. What does Araujo need to do, or where does Araujo need to be placed, or what changes need to be made to this man in general to get him going for Atlanta United?
Tyler, how long do we have?
As long as you want. As long as you want.
I'm on the record, and I will always be on the record until something changes. It's a frustrating player to watch. If I was a 9 on this team, if I was a right back on this team playing on the same side, I think your listeners would completely agree with me. Maybe the only time they would agree with me, that game against Nashville is as frustrating of a watch as I've ever seen. The amount of times he gives the ball away, the amount of times the pass isn't played at the right time, the extra touch is taken. And listen, he looks the part, right? There's no denying there's natural, God-given pace and ability to open up the game with his legs. However, between the ears, I think at times the decision-making is one of those things where I'm left shaking my head. I think Brooks Lennon is frustrated at times because it looks like and it feels like, again, this is from 10,000 feet, that the timing's off between the two. You watch Gutman and Wiley play together, and there's an understanding, albeit they're two similar players, where Lennon and Araujo are two completely different players. I get that. But the connection between those two down the right, guys, that's been, if I'm Bocanegra, if I'm Garth Lagaway, and if I'm Gonzalo Pineda, I said it last game. I believe it. I think he's on borrowed time. I think Gonzalo Pineda is looking at this saying, it's just not going to cut it. And if you go out and spend big free agent money on Derek Etienne and you like Caleb Wiley, I think Atlanta's attack looks better with Caleb Wiley on the left side. Then I think you got to look at it. Listen, DP status or not, you got to make the right decision. And this one's interesting. I don't know his best position. I really don't. But Tyler, Sidney, and Tommy, I'm going to give you something for the listeners that I have not seen talked about, but this is my observation. And when everyone watches Luis play, and everyone on Twitter, especially the Atlanta fan, that tries to correct me and tell me how hard he runs and how committed he is, my rebuttal to you guys is this. How often is it in recovery? How often is it when he made a mistake or he wasn't in the right position? I watch him in the attack, and everything's reactive. Like the pace and everything else, unless the ball at his feet, he's not moving around. There's no movement there. I saw Thiago Almada, honestly, 3 times in the Nashville game, literally look at him with his arms up in the air, begging for some type of movement. And that's why I think he's got some of the fans in Atlanta fooled a little bit that, well, look at the recovery runs, look at all that. No, you didn't pay $12 million for a recovery run. Yeah. You paid $12 million to be one of the top 5 to 7 best attacking wide players in this league. And Carlos Bocanegra and company, they're just not getting it.
Would you consider this a valid statement? Atlanta got what they really should have gotten out of him, considering what he did at Lille before, and considering, I mean, you have essentially 4 or 5 goals a season. And of course he was using a different way there as a sub, but the numbers weren't anything that you could say he's absolutely going to pay off in the long run. I think his talent, like you said, was something that's easy to look at and say, all right, well, yeah, he has the talent to make a difference, but can he? Did they just get essentially what they paid for?
No, because here's my reason why, Tyler. If it's 4 or 5 goals, then he's not 12 million. He's not, right? So either they overpaid, or I mean, quite honestly, they overpaid, or at some point the light's going to go off. He's going to have a 11 goal, 8 assist season, and then you're going to say, "Oh, that's the 12 million." But for right now, 4 goals at Lille is not worth 12 million. I don't care who you are, and I don't care what the profile is. If it is 12 million at Lille, for me, at the minimum, it's 8 goals, 8 assists. That's the barometer I would have for an attacking left-sided player on this Atlanta team with Gonzalo Pineda as the manager. I think it's got to be. You can convince me 7-7, but we're splitting hairs. For me, the baseline's 8-8 for 12 million.
Yeah, so let's kind of fast forward to the summer, and you mentioned Almada and what he's done, and I mean, I don't think it surprised anyone watching or listening to see him gone in the summer. Let's say that Atlanta United says, you know what, we're just going to wash our hands of Luis Araujo as well and just count our losses in the summer. So now you're left with 2 DP slots for Atlanta United. You have Giakoumakis, of course, but now you're left with 2 DP slots. If Atlanta United are left in that situation, how would you build this team around Giakoumakis?
That's a good question, Sydney. First off, I'm going to squash any kind of hypothetical because that ain't happening. Not to be that guy, but I think Thiago Almada more than likely will get 26, 27 million plus. They're going to have to make a decision. They want way more than that. Yeah. Do they get it? I don't know, especially if it's a Serie A team. Then it becomes interesting, right? If it's an English team, they'll get way more than that. I don't think Almada wants to go to England necessarily because I'm not totally sure he'd fit that style. I think the Napoli type of team in Serie A suits him. Higher level Bundesliga, mid-table to higher level La Liga, sure, absolutely, the money's there. I don't think they're going to buy out Luis Araujo. I just don't. And so now the question is, what do you do with Miles Robinson? And I said this during the Nashville game, because it's interesting right now that some people or some clubs, franchises in MLS are not being allowed's the wrong word. How do I say this? Are being, I would say, asked that if you're going to do big money, and I think teams can do it. So, but Aaron Long and Alexander Callens for New York City, both were seeking designated player contracts. Neither one got an offer of that. Now, I know Inter Miami probably would have made Collins a designated player offer, and I know Inter Miami definitely would have made a higher offer than LAFC or Seattle for Aaron Long, and yet they couldn't do it, right? So take that for what it is. I don't know if Atlanta's going to make Miles Robinson a designated player. However, I'll tell you right now, and I believe this, you lose Miles Robinson or Almada, Miles Robinson hurts this team exponentially more. Because, and I heard you guys earlier, Giakoumakis, you can build around that, right? He's the type of 9 that you could build around in a variety of ways. And so if you lose Almada, you can get natural wingers, delivery in there, more dynamic central midfield, which I think is a real issue for this team when Almada doesn't play, because I feel like we're set to Sejdic, Sosa, Ibar, like they're all the same player. I feel like there's no discrepancy between the two, so there's no real balance. I think if they lose Miles Robinson without a plan, guys, I think that's a bigger hole. And I know some people in Atlanta think I'm nuts. I don't think I am. And I know for a fact there are 2 or 3 teams in this league that if Miles Robinson became available and they can make him a DP, they would 100% make him a DP immediately. That doesn't mean Atlanta will, because maybe Atlanta looks at their 3 DP spots and say, we want to go a different way. But guys, you know this. You guys are Atlanta United fans. They got rid of Nagbe and Gressel to re-sign with the money Miles Robinson. Yeah. If you lose him for free, wow. Because now you're talking about you lost Gressel, you lost Nagbe, and then you lose Robinson in 2.5 years later, right? So I'd be stunned if they let him go. I know Bocanegra is on record saying the offer is on the table. But if Miles gets a $3 million a year offer from anywhere in Europe, he shouldn't take the MLS Atlanta United offer. Just shouldn't.
Yeah, I think, and the injury, of course, last year that kind of really threw a wrench in the plans, because now not only are you out of the picture for the MLS season, but now you're out of the picture for the World Cup. And I feel like you've lost a bit of leverage that you had already. But, so far he's proven that, even though he had this catastrophic injury last year, that he can still get back to a level. He's shown it this year.
You're talking about Miles, Sydney?
Yeah, Miles.
Yeah, Miles hasn't lost any leverage.
All right.
He hasn't. And I know what you're saying.
Right.
Quite honestly, if he went to the World Cup, he would have been gone.
Oh, yeah.
He wouldn't be here this year. So if you're going based on that, sure. But the Bundesliga scouts that I talk to on a regular basis, just where they're picking my brain, they're doing their due diligence, looking around. Miles Robinson's 1A, and if he ain't 1B, if he's not 1A, he's 1B. I'm telling you right now. He's got the profile. I don't think Miles wants to go to Germany. So, Sydney, maybe there's something there. But when Patrick Vieira is at Crystal Palace and he sees Chris Richards, but then also sees Miles Robinson, the word's out in England, he'll get the work permit from what I've gathered. So, I don't think there's a leverage issue. And especially, Sydney, he's free. He's free July 1st. He's got all the leverage in the world, because now all that money that was going to go to any kind of transfer fee after the World Cup now goes into his pocket. He's got a lot of leverage as long as he stays healthy. And I just wonder if it's in the back of his mind, because I don't know about you guys, human nature in my point. Thiago Almada knows right now he's at 26, 27 million, and it's going to turn into 35 to 40. That's got to be in the back of his mind. And Miles Robinson's the same. So listen, they're both pros. I'm not saying that. But human nature-wise, you're talking about massive career-changing moves for both players. I think this becomes a little tricky for Atlanta.
Yeah, and I'll throw this out there too before we move on to Miami. But I think the biggest thing with Miles is Atlanta has ended up kind of on the short end of the stick. That leverage for Atlanta is gone. They don't have an opportunity anymore. And yesterday we were there at the training ground. Bocanegra said, and you have to maybe read between the lines a little bit, but he said the best offer we can give him is on the table. You guys can understand what that means. I get it. You can't offer him more than what you can offer him, right?
Yeah, and I think, Tyler, that point is per MLS rules in certain things. Listen, Walker Zimmerman's contract raised a lot of eyebrows, and the Nashville ownership went to bat hard for Walker Zimmerman to get that deal. I'm a believer in this league. If you're going to have 3 DP spots and then 3 young DP under 22 initiative players, whatever they may be, I'm all for the freedom. If you want to go Walker Zimmerman's, fine, no problem. That's your prerogative. The DP spots, in my opinion, are for the owners to determine which way they want to go. And so that's why I think ultimately the Walker Zimmerman and John Ingram and Nashville deal happened. But Aaron Long immediately, Alexander Collins, as I said, Miles Robinson's another. I just think this league takes another step for growth when the same amount of money on attacking DPs is spent on, if a team wants to, on defenders. Guys, you're talking about a unique array of players to build a roster, and I think if a team wants to do it defensively, they should be allowed to. I've always said that. I'm not saying it sells tickets. You can have that different argument, but if you want to give me 2 designated player center backs and a 6, and I build my team that way, if a team wants to do that, they should be allowed to.
Maybe one day we'll get a 4th DP.
Tommy, maybe we get rid of the DPs and this league then just has a certain cap and a certain number, and then we are cooking with gas because there's going to be way more diversity of thought and way more ability to sculpt it. And I wouldn't be shocked if that's on the discussion horizon. I'm not saying for next year, but sooner rather than later, because I think a lot of owners, and even Don Garber to an extent, want to have a little bit of a different collection of ways of how to build rosters, especially with the way LAFC is trumping the card and beating everyone at the game of building a roster.
100%. Well, we were just talking about I brought my favorite Taylor Twellman moment. I don't know if you heard earlier.
What, by the way?
Oh, it's a great one. MLS is back tournament. Atlanta United's playing at 9:30 in the morning, and John Champion go back and forth about English breakfast for a good 5 to 10 minutes. I enjoyed it. We were sitting there drinking mimosas, and you had us on the ground because the conversation would not end. You just kept pushing him on what he was eating, and it was a great moment. I'm glad you're laughing because that was like one of my favorite moments of COVID.
Well, first off, that was just the reason why I'm laughing is I know exactly what I did that day. I know what I did the night before. I know John Champion and I were the only two people in the hotel in West Hartford because the entire world was shut down. We go back down to Bristol, and I don't know how or why, but for 2 straight days, I was just like, what do you do? Like, why is that your breakfast? Like, at what point do you not look at it and say, listen, we got weird stuff. Don't get me wrong. But like, not like that level. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, and he's trying to like defend it. And the best part, Tommy, he was serious. He wasn't like playing along. He was 1,000% serious, which made it even better. Anything John and I did was never shtick. That's why I think it was genuinely funny because it was literally my uncle and his nephew, and we argued about everything, and Mom told me not to, and I was like, I'm arguing with her brother because I can't let this go.
It was a moment, and it just like, and you brought it up like 5 minutes again later, and if you talk to him next, just let him know we brought this back up because it was a great moment.
If I texted him right now, he'd still probably write something of the sort. Yeah, exactly. That's what I told you.
Yeah. You know what I loved about it, like when y'all were on together though, is just as a quick side note, you would poke at him and then he would have this long silence and then he would just come back with it. And it was so funny because you could just see the cogs turning and waiting for that response. It was the chemistry was hilarious.
Tyler, I know you're going to find this surprising. I'm never really short of a comeback, whether it's good or not. I don't know. He actually was better at it, and that's what was alarming for me. So I thought I was Billy Big Time, still do, by the way. But anyways, I thought I was, Billy Big Time, and I was like, oh, I'm going to get everyone. And the first couple times he came back to me, I'm not going to lie to you, I was like, damn it, he's got me.
That's awesome.
Like, I gotta be one step better. And I was like, oh no, this isn't good. He did have 35 years more experience than me. Yep, I'm dating you, John. When you hear this, you're older than me.
There you go.
Tell him to listen.
Yeah.
Well, we've been spending all this time talking about Josef Martinez all off season. We knew it was coming, and you go back and you think about all the issues that's happened. Like after the injury, he comes back, and my second favorite Taylor Twellman moment was we find out Josef Martinez is suspended, I think on Thursday. The game's on Saturday, and I look at the schedule and I see it's on ESPN, and I see you're doing the game. And I thought that was it was perfect because if you get the home feed, they're not going to talk about it as much. And I knew that you were going to call this franchise out because at that moment you got Josef, talking to Felipe at the Athletic that he potentially wants out. It's him or Heinze. And you were very honest about just the state of what Atlanta United was at, like where they came from, the top. Mm-hmm. And they're at this moment now where you've got a coach and a player, the franchise player, wanting out. And that was just step one. And then Bocanegra, he calls him out as well. But then those conversations continue in the following off season. And then you've got Pineda, and then you've got chicken and rice. And you've got all these things that have just added up to just basically the fan base dividing themselves, because you've got the guys that say Josef Martinez can still be good. And the other ones are saying, we got to get him out here. And now we're here. We're here. And we're not even sure if Josef is even going to play. And like, And you're saying you're all excited about this at the beginning, and my comment was going to be like, but this might be a little bit of a disappointment because who knows if we even see him.
I'll be shocked if you don't see him because I guarantee you, Tommy, Phil Neville's going to tap into that well. Because if there is, and honestly, if there's any sign of hope that Josef can return to 85% of who he is, you're going to find this out Saturday night. That's a fact, not an opinion. Because if there's at all the player that everyone in Atlanta loved, that I loved covering as a neutral, he played, I said this, and I still describe him, he played as if his hair was on fire. That is a compliment in a manner that you weren't going to get to him. He was literally going to run through the wall. Now, ultimately, running through the wall has taken 5 steps back, and I don't think Bocanegra was necessarily wrong. I don't. I think Carlos Bocanegra and that front office were trying to motivate Josef, Tommy, in a weird way. I just disagreed with how Heinze and those guys were doing it because I saw a player that saw a ghost. Josef Martinez' knee injury was the ghost to him. And I don't know if he's recovered yet because there's not the same confidence in that body. That body's not the same. Alan Shearer had a nasty knee injury. He was not the same type of player, but he didn't see a ghost. He just found a different way to score goals. John Champion brought that correlation last year, and I thought it was an unbelievable one because that's kind of what Josef is. He's a goal scorer, but he was way different than Alan Shearer was. But you know what I'm trying to say. I think this Saturday night, the only reason why I was all over this, I was with Apple, MLS, and I said, I want to be in that building no matter what. Because Phil Neville is going to look at Josef. He's not going to have to say a single thing, and he's going to find out whether or not Josef is capable of doing this. Now, Josef, Tommy, is not the same guy. He's not fit the way he was, but he saw a ghost, guys. And if he gets rid of that ghost, is there a guy in there that can score 12 to 16 goals a year? Of course there is. You just got to put him on the right team. The problem is Josef can't get out of his own way because he's not at the same level fitness-wise. He doesn't have the same confidence. And the way Giakoumakis has come into this Atlanta United, guys, I think they made the right move. I do. I firmly believe that because Giakoumakis looks like, now in saying that, he's got to make sure the hamstring is completely healthy and he's got to get rid of these reoccurring little hamstring injuries. But the guy looks like he could easily score 20 goals in this league.
The interaction between those two would be really interesting.
But honestly, guys, he's wearing 7.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. we had an entire spaces on that because people were not happy with that.
Can I tell you though? Doesn't that tell you a little bit about Jorgis, where you're like, I kind of like him.
Confidence.
Yeah, I mean, it's also it's real confidence. Don't get me wrong. Now, if he didn't have 5 goals in his first 5 starts, all of us on this thing would be like, "You're an idiot." But now he's kind of backed it up, so now you're kind of like, I kind of like him. I mean, I like personality. I know you guys find that surprising, but I like difference. I feel like the younger, newer player. This isn't an old guy get off my lawn type of thing, but I mean that. Like I like different personalities. I like people being themselves. And I thought when he picked 7, I remember telling everybody at MLS and Apple, I'm like, I'm interested in that story, and I'm interested in that player because that is some ballsy moves to say, he's gone. Good, I'll take it. No problem.
Yeah. We know y'all probably going to build a
Josef might stab him, right? Pre-game, I mean, I'm joking, but you know what I'm saying. Like, he might be like, I don't know. I kind of feel like Josef might 2-foot him in warm-ups out of the clear blue. That would be amazing. Do you know how good Apple TV would be that night if that happened?
Dude, from your mouth to God's ears, I want to see it. I want to see it live, and I can't wait to hear you call it. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah. But no, going back, you kind of answered part of my next question, but the other part was Phil Neville, right? He's a guy that he's very outspoken. He gives the impression, okay, my way or the highway to some extent. And knowing what we know about Josef Martinez, how he's got on or not got on with coaches that he's played for in this duration in MLS thus far, even given his talent, I mean, is there a worry that those two personalities will clash?
Sydney, it's a good question. The only thing is, and I'll tell you, Phil Neville, good on him. Because he literally looked at Gonzalo Higuain and said, it's my way or the highway. Yeah. And it's actually less my way or the highway. It's more, it's the team's highway or you're out of here.
Sure.
And I think he got Josef's attention. Now, it's up to Josef whether or not he wants to change or give it his best. Yeah. Everything I've heard is Josef is giving it his all, right? But you guys know better than me. Didn't Josef just become a dad in the middle of this preseason, I think? Mm-hmm. Right? So there could be another part of Josef that's a little distracted.
Maybe was born premature as well, if I'm not mistaken.
That's what I thought. So I'm glad you brought it up, Tyler, because I thought I heard that. So I just, I think Phil's going to give Sydney Josef some time, but I think that clock's running out a little bit. And I think that's why I think this weekend, I'm not sure you see Josef start. Do I think you see Josef play 25, 30 minutes? I do. And then I think Phil's going to get his answer of whether or not Josef wants to buy in. But from all accounts, and you guys know I'm asking, I've heard 3 weeks ago Josef started to show some real signs of old Josef, which I think that's got everyone excited. But he did it to Gonzalo Higuain. So, Sydney, I don't think anyone in Miami is worried about any personality clash because that one clashed. And then Gonzalo came back and scored, 11 goals? And it was like 12 games or something stupid.
Yeah, he lit himself on fire. It was crazy. But, yeah, this whole match just has everything that you want, I think. I mean, it's not like it's a derby, right? It's not like it's an established rivalry, but the storyline's there. Storyline's amazing. So,
especially Tyler with the rumor of Tata Martino wanting to come back from Major League Soccer.
Yeah. If he ends up
listen, the way Atlanta came into this league, Inter Miami looked at Atlanta and said, we're going to do that, but our way, the South Florida way, and once we get our stadium, we're going to be better than you. There is a front office big brother, little brother competition, for lack of a better, I don't know how to describe it better than that. It may not be big brother, little brother, but you guys know what I'm trying to say. I think this becomes very intriguing. I really do. If Messi, Busquets come this summer, the way all the rumors and signs are pointing to, that stadium's built, World Cup comes here, I think we may be talking about Atlanta-Miami more than any rivalry that Atlanta thinks they have down the road. I don't think it's there now. But if Josef bags in a couple goals, boys, I don't know. This could get ugly quick.
Yeah, it jumps to the top real quick, for sure.
It does.
We talked about it with Jake last week on here about what is the rivalry. Because you have Orlando, but that feels kind of manufactured, I think, at times. Nashville has always been a good shout for me. That's what I told him because it seems more natural and the fans just don't like each other. And Charlotte's just not there enough yet. It's still new. So Miami, now that the storylines are there, it has all the recipe and the makings of it. So it'll be – I don't want
it's got the marquee, the glitz and the glamour once they get that stadium done. Nashville's a real rivalry to me for you guys. It's eerily similar to Seattle and Portland.
Yeah.
Not based on the history, but based on the fan bases, the cities, the owners, the way they spend money, the contrast, everything about it. It feels natural. The Orlando one, I loved at ESPN for years just because Josef opened his mouth every time and then would bang in like a goal of the year and then would act like it. But Orlando never really beat Atlanta in anything meaningful. Charlotte could be same type of NFL owner, massive money, huge crowds, but right now they're not in the same stratosphere. So this Miami one becomes interesting, and I think Josef could kickstart it. I really do.
Yeah. So to piggyback on that, what are the two keys, I guess, for each team? Who needs to do what in this one? I mean, we talked about Josef plenty. I know Almada is always the buzzword, I guess, but for each team, what are the two keys for each team to kind of pull out a win?
Well, you said it simple. I think Giakoumakis, if he plays with Almada, that connection, what does that look like? I think more so, I find Atlanta to be much better when their wide players are in sync with each other, because then it takes away from the inconsistencies of the three in the midfield and the balance. I like Sosa. I do. I don't like Sosa in any kind of the pairings that he's with Atlanta United. Does that make sense? So that becomes an intriguing player and one that is difficult. But I think when their wide players are in sync with each other and a part of creating that width, I think Atlanta's good. Listen, Miami was very good against Columbus, guys. Columbus is a fantastic team. I watch them every week, any game I can. Wilfred Nancy is a fantastic manager. And I think if he gets this Columbus project right, he will be the manager of the 4 biggest franchises in this league in the blink of an eye, because he did it at Montreal with no money. He's gone to Columbus with a little bit more money. And yet he's done something that they're just fun to watch. And Miami beat them. Miami's got to be very smart with their positioning, their defensive structure. Once they lost Gregory, that killed them. So now they've got to do it in sync with each other. Kamal Miller, similar to Miles Robinson, contract up at the end of the year. Where is he? But he's a bona fide center back in this league. But if they don't defend well, they're in trouble. Campana's an interesting story there, right? And so when he's healthy, they're just better. I think his style of play suits Phil Neville and this team in trying to make the game as simple as possible for their team while trying to be dangerous on the other end. He's a real presence, which is also why Josef could have a bigger impact coming off the bench for the last 25, 30 minutes or playing as a second forward, depending on how that goes. But I think it all depends on how Miami defends. If they defend well, they'll get after this team. They'll find a way to create chances just because Campana is dangerous.
So you talk about good coaching, right? And Pineda has come in, and they were hoping that he'd be able to grow in as a young coach, had success as an assistant. But the fan base is getting frustrated with Pineda. Mm-hmm. And
how so, Tommy?
Well, you have a big franchise that Atlanta United. You bring in a guy that hasn't been a head coach before. Tactics have been questionable throughout some of the time and some of the play that they have. And people are asking the question, is Atlanta United a team that is a breeding ground for a young coach to come in? Because we've seen experience come in, and we've seen it work, and we've seen it not work, right? Like, it's players aren't getting Watergate. We've been there. I have to bring it up, Tyler. And now you have Garth Lagerwey come in, possibly the best front office person of all time of MLS. Do you think that if things don't go well at the end of this year, he goes out and finds his own guy?
He's never been able to. So that people need to understand, Garth Lagerwey, as successful as he's been, and as understanding of each franchise that he's been at, whether it's Real Salt Lake or Seattle, that manager, when he's there, before he got there, has been very successful and stayed successful. Now, I argue with Garth, that's a sign of success. Whether you hired him or not, you found a way to work. But you would have to think human nature. Garth, at some point in his career, would like to pick his coach. But Garth isn't dumb. So if Gonzalo Pineda has this team playing at a high level and this team's successful, then Tommy's going to be the manager. But I said it at the beginning of the year, and I'll say it now. Gonzalo's coaching for his job. Gonzalo's not an idiot. He knows that. And especially with this team. I think what's more intriguing, though, Tommy, is not the manager. It's how quickly Garth and company can get out of some of the contracts that they signed, roster build, and kind of redo this. And it started, listen, I know I'm going to piss everyone off, so that's why part of the reason why I'm going to tell the truth. Part of the reason why the contracts are still bad, Tato Martino did not set this thing up well for the long term. Set it up well short term, but not for the long term. And so that after Tata leaves and in that transition, that's where this thing becomes a little hazy. I'm not excusing any of the decisions, but I'm just saying to people in this league where everything has to be long term now, because of the salary cap and the way it's constructed, you can't just say like a Dodgers can or the Dolphins can, where they just come into that season and go, no, we're going for it. We're going. The LA Rams, great example, right? They trade 17 first-round picks. They have nothing for the next 7 years, but they win the Super Bowl. You can't really do that in this league because if you win, great, but it's actually worse than any other league in this country. It's like double the time to get back, right? So long term, you got to have that picture. Gonzalo Pineda is coaching for his job. But me as an outsider from 10,000 feet, as you guys have asked me, which is why I think I'm going to give that perspective, I'm actually way more interested in the roster construction. They'll find the manager that fits that. But I look at this roster right now, and I see a very, very complicated, unbalanced roster. We've talked about it already. I'll repeat it. The midfield seems like it's a bunch of the same players. I'd argue the wingers, it's a lot of like for likes. So if you try to change tactics, which, Tommy, I'm bringing this full circle to your question, in Gonzalo's defense, I don't know if you can change tactics a ton if it's the same players, if it's the same profile of players. So that's where that becomes interesting. But I think being critical of Gonzalo's tactics is very fair. I felt like the second half against Nashville, there was no tactic change, and there should have been. And I said a couple of those on air. But it's a long-winded answer, Tommy. The answer is Gonzalo's coaching for his job, and he knows it.
For sure. And like you bring up the comment about Tata and the franchise. I mean, that goes back to we get Boca Negra comments nonstop on our shows. And there was a huge disconnect because Tata didn't want Barco. Tata didn't want Pity Martinez. Like those were two guys that he did not want. And like I think that's partially why he went out. I mean, I know he had interest in running Mexico, but like the front office just hasn't seemed like a well-functioning machine in years.
No, I mean, listen, I disagree with anyone. P.T. Martinez, he's the South American Player of the Year. That's not a bad signing. It's not a bad signing. It's just not. Now, was he used the right way? Did he play the same level as Miguel Almirón? No matter what he did, if he didn't do what Miguel Almirón did, he was going to be heavily criticized. But guys, an MLS franchise signed the South American reigning Player of the Year. That is not a bad signing. Then they moved on from him, and they got, 16 million euros or whatever the number is that's public, whatever that is. So fine. The Barco one was interesting. The Barco one is very interesting. Listen, no matter what Tata's people said, and I was very close with Tata. We got along. We had some good arguments, which I enjoyed, right? But he knew he could have an argument and discuss things, and it wasn't going to go public. I'd enjoy it, but I would 1,000% question some of the things he said. I'm going to tell you this right now. He knew a year and a half into this Atlanta deal that Mexico or the United States or our national team was coming. He knew that. So whether or not he wanted P.T. Martinez or Barco or whoever that may be, I'm going to say it's a little disingenuous because he did know the interest from Mexico was at the front of the page immediately. You know what I'm saying? So, right. He kind of knew he was leaving. But I go back to DeBoer. I was critical of DeBoer, but I always was critical of DeBoer saying he's still getting the results. Guys, he should have been hosting. You guys should have hosted MLS Cup that year.
100%.
See what I'm saying, Tyler? So, I was there for the Champions Cup when they beat, was it Club America?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. I was there for that. That was a fantastic
That was the one
event.
where Renowitz scored a banger from
a banger. Naturally, that's the only reason why I brought up Jeff Venmo me $20. But then I did the Open Cup final.
Yeah.
It just wasn't at the same level the way Almirón and Tata did. But guys, I got to tell you, it still was successful. So Tommy, I'm sorry to go long, but P.T. Martinez, for me, was not a bad signing. Barco, in hindsight, okay, fine, but they just hit a home run with Almada. And if they didn't sign Tata Martino, just so everyone's clear, they were not getting Miguel Almirón. Right. So, as I'm critical of Tata, I am going to say, you also got $27 million because that guy recruited Miguel Almirón and turned him over. So there's always these kinds of discussions. I just am a little surprised from the DeBoer MLS's back moment where it's gone from there. That is more alarming to me than the Tata to DeBoer because I was there front and center covering this team, and I didn't think DeBoer. I was critical of him. I'm not saying anything, so the fans miss me with any criticism. Say you criticize him all the time. That's not what I'm saying. But it wasn't. It's now. When you look back on it, it was almost as successful. It wasn't. They won trophies. They just lost the game to Toronto that they should have never lost.
Yeah. in history, because that was Joseph. You don't expect him to miss that penalty, right? Yeah, ever.
Nope.
And yes, that's a painful moment. I wish we could talk about this all night. I want to respect your time for sure, because I know you've got plenty of stuff going on. You got to get ready for the matches this weekend.
Well, I took the over in the Celtics 76ers game, so it just tipped off. So whatever you guys want to do.
Well, look. So who wins?
Well, I know the Hawks lost to the Celtics, so we're good.
Yeah.
What that's not even,
I act like I'm bragging. That's a big win. Should I go now?
The door's over there. No, look, that's Tommy's sport. That's Tommy's sport. I'm gonna let him jump in on that one.
That hurts.
So I can't believe you guys haven't brought up the fact that I completely failed on my prediction of Atlanta United being a good soccer town.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair,
what a bad. I missed that one by just a little bit.
Just a little.
To be fair, everybody, I think was like, that's SEC country. Who?
It is, but Tyler, St. Louis Cardinals fan, and when you guys had the best pitching staff in the history of Major League Baseball and couldn't sell out a regular season game until the World Series, I was like, why would they're going to go to soccer? They didn't go watch Glavine and Maddox in Smoltz. They're not going to do that. And then my first weekend in Atlanta, I sent a note to everyone in MLS's front office, and I'm like, just raising my hand. I'm going to own this for 20 years. You remember Dumb and Dumber when he says the town is 5 miles that way? I should have came on air and said the town is 75 miles. I missed that one by a mile. I mean, unbelievable, brutal. We forgive you. It's one of the best. Yes. You guys are. It's awesome, and the reason why it's awesome, there's real anger. I love it. Like I love getting in the Uber, and the guy stops and he goes, "You don't know anything about our right back situation," or something like that. I'm like, yes. Yes, I love this.
Let's go.
So good. I love it. So good. Anger. Then immediately I'm telling him, drop me off. I need to get out of here.
Yeah.
Anger is better than apathy.
Oh, Sydney, I love it because it means people care.
Exactly.
And you guys know me by now. I'm a huge all sports guy. Okay. It's got a lot of SEC type of vitriol and that kind of. I love it. I just love it, and I hope it never changes because that means you guys and the fan base care. I know Arthur Blank is 1,000% cognizant of just how passionate it is. And Darren Eales was. It's awesome. It's a real – this is when Garth Lagerwey asked me, what do you think? And I looked at him. I was like, buddy, this is what we dream of. A market that cares, a market that will hold you accountable, a market that has a level of expectation. Spoiled or not, different podcast. But it doesn't matter, right? Like I love it. I love it. It's just fun. It's a good time to cover. And this Saturday night against Miami, even though you guys are an away team, I just love it.
Yeah.
And no
Jim Curtin's going to disagree with you though. Jim Curtin says you need to check everybody's driver's license to make sure that they're from Atlanta.
Can't wait for that match.
Yeah, but Tommy, that's also why I love Jim. He's from Philly.
Yeah.
Like they hate Santa Claus, dude. Like that's awesome. That's what we want. But Jim also hates Ted Lasso. I called him on that one. I'm like, come on, dude. Ted Lasso. I cry every episode. I laugh every episode. How do you hate Ted Lasso? Like honestly.
Didn't he say it hurts like US coaches as well? Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
I know.
Listen.
Go ahead. July 2nd is circled on a lot of people's calendars. That's when Philly comes to town. So
I know. And if El Trafico, slip of the tongue, similar but different. El Trafico got rescheduled, and so now I'm off the Atlanta Philly game, and I'm now doing the July 4th at the Rose Bowl. I mean, it's not a bad game to do. Don't get me wrong.
That's a good one.
But Philly Atlanta was circled on mine right when the schedule came out. I go, yep, I want to do that game.
I was about to say, let's do this. I'll meet you at the Benz, buy you a beer. And
absolutely, on air. I mean, I do my best work.
That would be amazing. Hey, and it's cheap beer too. So
that's the best part too. Arthur's like, no, $5 beers. I'm like, where is it? Did I die and go to heaven? But then I go to Chick-fil-A and it's $75 for a meal. I'm like, oh yeah, Arthur doesn't own that. No.
Yeah. No, he forgot about that one. All right, Taylor. We appreciate you coming on, man.
Thank you so much.
Absolute amazing time. Welcome back anytime, by the way.
Yeah, let's do it. Next time I do Atlanta, let's do it.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
We'll hit you up.
Be good, guys. Appreciate all your support. And honestly, criticism is vital for us to grow. So please keep it going.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Taylor.
See you guys.
Cheers.
See you, sir.
Good stuff.
That was awesome.
Taylor Twellman.
Yeah. Good stuff. I mean, what else can you say, man? That's between him and Jake this week and last week. I mean, you get kind of the best of both worlds, right? And the thing I love about Taylor is he's not afraid of a strong opinion. That's what you want, right? And what he just said here at the end, that's perfect. I mean, if we're all, Sydney, what you said, if you're all apathetic about it, we're never growing. We're never going anywhere.
Exactly.
And Atlanta's lucky. I say it all the time on this show. I say it all the time on the spaces. Atlanta's lucky to have the fan base that it does. Whether the team's doing well or not, they still show out. Would like the team to do a little bit better, but hey, we're still third in the East. So it's not over by any means. You hope they get back to how they were earlier in the season and roll it out from here. But with that, we do have a game to talk about.
Yes, we do.
So the Josef Martinez, not Derby yet, but Derby.
Candle
and there it is.
again.
There's a candle.
This is Candle 2.0.
Light it up for Joseph.
Oh. So
Kevin from Charlotte has the first one.
He does.
Now.
Thanks to the giveaway on Patreon. Quick plug.
Patreon.com/Scarves and Spikes, by the way. But I guess good news from trading on Wednesday today. I was going to say we saw it, but it was a photo on the socials. Yakamaka's trained, so it's good news right there, and it may speak to the idea that we do see him in Miami to some extent on Saturday, which is really good news, obviously, for Atlanta United and, of course, Almada. So I think, and Mike Conti said it, anytime you have Thiago Almada on the field, you have a chance to win. I would take it a step further. Anytime you have Yorgos Giakoumakis and Thiago Almada on the field at the same time, you have a chance to win. And we kind of joked about it, but Giakoumakis, 5 goals and 5 starts. His next goal, if he scores on Saturday against Miami, they'll give him 6-6, tie in with Twellman. So, yeah, I mean, good news, obviously, and I think that speaks to the fact that maybe the hamstring wasn't as serious. It was never serious, I don't think, but maybe the hamstring is getting better. But again, let's hope that it isn't a sign of things to come in the future, that he remains fit and healthy for an extended period of time and can continue this run of form that he's on, because that's going to be a major key. Let's hope that Joseph doesn't go too-footed on him in warm-ups, by the way.
I want to see it.
That's great.
No, actually, I don't. Please don't hurt Giakoumakis.
Right, exactly.
Please don't. But some spiciness, I'll take for sure.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to see that in this match. I think maybe it plays out like any other MLS match, kind of run-of-the-mill for now. But the moment Josef Martinez walks on that pitch, if he does, and I agree with Taylor, I think he gets a rollout at the end, if only because that is a mental side of this game. It's an intangible that you have to think about if you're Phil Neville. You're putting the guy back out there. Everybody knows the drama. Everybody knows the storyline. So he might not be in the best form right now, but absolutely, it's a mental thing to see that guy come back out playing against you. It actually might be a good thing that really nobody that played with Joseph in his prime is going to be on the pitch at the same time. Because, I mean, it's not like Gazan's going to be there. So,
Right.
But it's a mental thing for sure. And it'll be curious to see how that plays out.
I don't know how this game's going to end up finishing. I have no idea. Like, this is, I mean, when we see the lineups, we'll see. But like you expect, I think that they go back. Like, Ibarra couldn't play like enough because he played too much in the Open Cup game, right? And you knew he wasn't going to be there. And Pineda, for me, he's got to know what his best midfield is. He has to. And you just have gone off 2 stinker of the games. I was going to call it something else, but I said stinker. I feel like I'm talking to kids. But 2 crappy games. And you've got to get that out. And if you're getting your best player back, you're getting Giakoumakis. I know Amada is really the best player, but you're getting your guy that scores goals on a regular basis back. And then if you don't play Barra and Sadic, I'm going to question it. I absolutely going to question. I know Rosaju had a good start to the season. We were all shocked. And Jason Longshore was on here saying he was going to get, I don't remember, a combination of like 8, goals and assists. Like, cool. He started off great, but it hasn't been good. It hasn't been good enough. And you've got to stick to what your optimum lineup is. And if you're healthy, and I think that we're healthy, then you absolutely have to put in the lineup that we want. We're selfish. We want our lineup, Pineda. That's what we want. Play our guys, and things are going to be better. And then we'll tell you next week, we told you so.
I think the big question, too, is do you continue to start Wiley at left wing? I say yes, because I feel like Etienne, for whatever reason, he hasn't been able to find his form as of late. And that's why I brought him in, because of that. What he showed with his previous club, Red Bulls, but at the same time, it had to click for whatever reason. And Pineda said, it's a matter of creating chances. Well, he's not done that. I feel like Wiley right now, form wise, and we had Tony Annan on the Patreon feed, of course. One of his guys, Wiley, he's come well. I mean, he's come good for this team, and he's young. He's still finding his legs, but he's been good. And I feel like with more appearances, more time on the field, more time to gel, he's going to be a much better player at the end of the season. And that's at the cost of having a guy like Etienne maybe not starting like we thought he would at the beginning of the season. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, because it's one of your kids coming good. But at the same time, here's a player that you spent not too much money on, but you brought him in on a multi-year deal, who is in fine form with his previous club, but is on the bench. So in some regards, not a great problem, but you have to hope that Etienne can continue to raise this level of play. So, we talk about depth. Whoever you put over there, whether it's Wiley or Etienne, you're pretty sound at that left side. Now the right side, Arujo, we could talk about that all night, but as far as Wiley and Etienne are concerned, I think Wiley, you have to keep riding him for now, and then hope that Etienne can contribute to the way you expect him to contribute.
Yeah, and you've got a pretty busy stretch coming up, right? Like, you want Wiley because he's kind of the hot hand. He's looked dangerous in his matches, even when he's not scoring goals. He's much more confident taking guys on one-on-one. He's really growing into that position. And Bocanegra said it yesterday, that he's being asked to do stuff that he maybe wasn't as comfortable doing when he was playing as a left back, especially for the twos and to a degree last year. But he's really, really attack-minded and attack-oriented, and he looks good on that left wing. I'll give you my quick you're probably thinking way too much into this moment of the week, which is at training yesterday, Etienne at the end was taking a lot of shots from the right side of the box with his left foot. And, so take that for what it's worth. It's probably nothing. But we all know that, like, he can play on both wings. And I would actually like to see a pairing of Etienne and Lennon, and then Wiley and Gutman. And look, what you do with Arujo, I don't know. Do you bench him for a little bit? I just don't think that's what's going to motivate him, but I don't know. But if Giakoumakis can't play, stick him at the number 9 spot. Let him play up top. I mean, if he loses the ball, he's going to lose it anyway. So, like, let him be up top and let him take a shot. Like, who cares if he sails it? At least he's not losing the ball in dangerous territory or just running into guys. He's receiving the ball and doing something with it. But then you see what you've got on the right with Etienne. Then you let Wiley get his time. Gutman, you don't want to take him out of the left back spot. Lennon, you don't want to take him out of the right back spot. Maybe the chemistry between Lennon and Etienne will just be better. And then you take Araujo, stick him up top as a number 9. I mean, because it's the only other position you could really play him in, because you're not moving Amada. So, look, I've solved all the problems. That's what we're doing. So there it is.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
By the way, I got it wrong. I said Etienne, previous club was Red Bull. So it's Columbus, obviously, but
oh yeah.
That's a good call out, though. I don't think it's a bad call out. Like, question is, because Pineda's a very positive coach, like you can tell he's very positive reinforcement type guy. Does he have, and I don't want to say guts, but I'm going to say guts. Does he have the guts to sit Araujo? Cojones? Can he take Araujo out of the lineup? Because I don't know if he can. Now, if you solve that situation if you put him up front, right? Because then you don't have to bench him. But even Ted Lasso benched Jamie Tart.
He did.
He did. He did, right? And Sydney, I don't know if you're caught up yet. I know you've been catching up, so I don't know if it's a spoiler or not.
I'm still midway. I'm almost done with season 2, by the way.
Awesome. Well, it's only going to get better. But yeah, I mean it's going to take. I just haven't seen Pineda really make that move often, where he just makes a huge decision of a player that's struggling and take him out, especially a big name besides Josef Martinez. And that situation was just obviously a disaster across the board, and not because of Pineda, but just because of how volatile that situation was. But besides Josef Martinez, I really haven't seen it with other players. So I don't know.
We kind of came close. And I think it was more just to preserve him because he played a lot on Wednesday against Memphis. We saw it a little bit when he came off against Nashville. So I don't know if that was just fitness-wise, just to keep it fresh or what, but that's kind of a little bit of an eyebrow raiser to me in regards to Araujo. But
that's a good point.
As far as benching him all together when he's perfectly fit, the optics of that will be immense. But at the same time, you got to do what's best for the team, right? And if that means maybe giving your one of the highest paid players in MLS a little break to kind of get his wits about him, I mean, you may have to do that. Again, not saying he will, but it'd be interesting if he does.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I'm wrong. I immediately realized I was wrong with everything I just said. Marcelino Moreno was taken out for pretty much the entire quarter of the season. We never saw him play at all. So let's just delete the tape of everything I said. I'm going to shut up. You guys finish the show. I'll be back.
So what you said is he does have the cojones, right?
He's got him, baby. But and he was a DP. I guess Moreno was a DP because I was going to say, well, maybe he won't do that to a DP, but Moreno was. I mean,
he was at one time. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, everybody seemed like a DP. We forgot that Alan Franco was a DP as a center back as well, which is still, man, talking to Taylor and then just thinking about this Josef Martinez thing all week, man, we've had some really crappy years, guys. Like, it's just really been downhill. And like the beginning of the season was just so happy. We were doing well. And now we're just in a little bit of a funk and PTSD.
Could be worse, though.
Oh, yeah.
Worse.
So Bruno's saying, are we going to talk about him saying Tata Martino screwed us for the long term? I got to say, that was a take I have not heard before, and I've heard a lot of Atlanta takes. Now, I would agree with what he said shortly after that, especially with, I feel Tata Martino was probably the best technical director Atlanta could have ever had in the beginning because players just wanted to come play for him. He's a legend in South America. So,
yeah,
and yes, he was directly responsible for Miggy. So, but I don't know, I guess, enough about the kind of say that he had in some of these contracts and everything else as to what that then caused at the end of 2018. I don't know that they were in a bad position then compared to what they are in now in terms of the contracts that they're stuck with. So I don't know. I'm really curious to see how quickly they can fix some of these contracts that maybe need fixing, or bring in the right guys, or do what they got to do, because I mean they made leaps and bounds in 6 months, 8 months, right? But can they do that again in a summer transfer window? Can they do that again in next offseason? Like, if they can, then that's great, and you're looking at some like long-term success, hopefully. But is that feasible?
Yeah. I mean, well, and this Taylor Twellman, Tata Martino thing, we could talk about. Like, I would love to talk about this for hours, because think about it. Like, Tata Martino didn't bring Darlington Nagbe or Parkhurst or Lorenowitz. Like, those were guys that specifically Bocanegra brought in, right? And so then you look at some of the other contracts that you're looking at here, and maybe I just didn't pay attention as much then. But like, I'm interested now to like go back and look at some of these past salaries and dig deep into that and see. I just don't know if that's I don't know if that's true or not. Like, or just thinking about it early on, I don't see it. But again, like, we're gonna do some research. Maybe this is a Patreon episode.
There we
go.
How Tata stole Christmas.
I can't wait for the Photoshop of that one. That's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Oh boy. This is what you guys have to look forward to on Patreon.
Yeah.
So why are you not subscribed?
Patreon.com/scarves and spikes. We're gonna keep saying it until you subscribe.
And I think we're getting close to finishing up our next watch along get together. Yes. We're gonna finalize that this week, but we're gonna do one here soon. So yeah, there was a ton of fun. We gave away Joseph Candle. We'll figure out something else fun to give away. And yeah, Patreon.
And also, Bruno, how Tata stole the peaches from Atlanta.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Yeah, and we've working out some merch. Starting off easy. We're gonna be also probably making you guys some stickers as well. Wife has been working very hard on the stickers, by the way. So, gonna get you some cool ones to represent our show, which will be cool.
Patreon.com/scarves and spikes.
And you can help design some of the stuff that we make. So yeah, good stuff coming there. On top of that, we can talk about Miami and the Joseph Derby all day, but we had to predict something at some point. So I have no idea, like you, Tommy. I don't know where to go with this. Me and you have gotten one right all season, I think.
It's one more than I got him right all season, I think.
Yeah, we're on a roll.
I was gonna guess 3-0. I know I wasn't on the show, but I was gonna guess 3-0 Nashville. So I still would have gotten it wrong. I was surprised they ended up getting a goal. So I'll be honest, I still would have gotten it wrong even if I was on there. But I'm gonna go in this one. I'm gonna go that it's going to be a 1-1 game, and I usually don't like calling out specifics of the game, but I have a dream in my head that Giakoumakis comes in, or I'm sorry, Giakoumakis and Joseph are 2 second half substitutes, and Josef Martinez scores, and Giakoumakis scores 5 minutes later, and we finish at a 1-1 draw. And if this happens, I'm lighting the candle.
How many shots are you also going to take after that? Because that would be a nail biter.
Well, I'm going to be watching this game on Sunday because I am going to be at a Seis de Mayo party. So if I jump on Spaces, I haven't told you guys yet. If I jump on Spaces, just mute me if needed.
Go with it. Let's ride. Let's do this.
Tommy, I thought you were going to say 1-1. Giakoumakis opens the scoring, but Joseph scores a late winner.
I thought that too. Gosh. I almost said that, and I changed it last minute because I didn't want to be that guy. So I changed it to the opposite way around. So if you want to say that, you do it. I don't want to put that in the world.
I was also going to say 1-1. I was going to say Giakoumakis, but scoring for Atlanta, but not Joseph scored for Miami. Probably Campana or Bryce Duke or somebody like that. But someone other than Joseph getting the goal for Miami. So 1-1 draw for me too.
I think Giakoumakis gets the start. And I think it'll be a surprise, but I think Giakoumakis gets the start. and I'm going to raise you one, Tommy, and say 2-1. I think my additional romantic view to that is Josef gets it right as he comes on, gets his first goal for Miami, makes it real scary, and then Giakoumakis finishes it off with a brace. So that he not only does he tie Taylor Twellman, but then he sorry, Taylor, if you're listening to this, but then he surpasses Taylor Twellman with the number of goals in his first 6 starts. That's it. That's how it's going down.
Ooh,
or Araujo starts at number 9, and who knows what happens.
Hat trick for Luis Araujo.
A hat trick for Araujo. Get out of here. Oh, my God. That's the funniest thing you've said. This is the hardest I've ever laughed on this show. Is somebody even suggesting, oh my God, if Araujo got a hat trick. Holy, oh man.
Take a day off from Twitter.
This is the best episode we've ever done. Like this is my favorite time with everybody. The comments have been great in here. Taylor was great. Yeah. Sydney said a hat trick by Araujo, and the show. We're at the peak of this show. Like we're ending it. Thank you. This is our last episode.
Like and subscribe.
Going
out on top.
We're going out on top. If Araujo gets a hat trick, I was gonna say I was gonna shave my head, but my wife will never talk. I'll shave my beard if Araujo gets a hat trick.
I will not. I will not.
Oh my God, my wife would kill me. But
because it's MLS. But hey, you said it, so. Everybody in the chat, you can remember that next week whenever Luis Araujo scores a hat trick. Next Wednesday, he's going to come in here with no facial hair.
There's no chance. He's
going to prove everybody wrong.
There's no chance. Oh, boy. I tweeted Kubo every game. If you score a goal, I will get a tattoo. And he liked my comment every game. After every game, he liked it. It was like he almost was showing me like, I didn't score.
I mean, why didn't you just tweet him, hey, I'll get this tattoo if you go to the corner and you become the dark arts master for 10 minutes and hold off everybody while we're trying to scrounge out a win. Then you would have your Atlanta United tattoo.
I think he did that twice, and I think the one was there, and I was just laughing. I was hysterically laughing like I was before because I was like, this is the best thing this guy's ever done. He's just killed like 45 seconds in the corner. Like, that is his legacy of Atlanta United.
And it is. We're still talking about it. That's where we're at.
It is.
We haven't mentioned Jürgen Damm yet. Good, so. All right. Now we
should have brought him up to Taylor Twellman. Taylor,
what do you think about Jürgen Damm?
That would have been a good shout.
All right, now we can end.
We're gonna write that down for. He said he'll come back next time he does an Atlanta game, so we're gonna write that down.
We have to ask
Jürgen Damm.
Jürgen Damm. What are your thoughts on Jürgen?
Yeah.
And was it TikTok? What did he do? Snapchat?
Right. Yeah, he TikTok, Grandpa.
All right, Mark. Which, by the way, Mark, great meeting you. I got to meet Mark at the Open Cup game the other day, so that was cool.
Didn't see him.
And it's a little bit easier in Kennesaw to like see us if we're around, but like by all means, if you guys see us, we would love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, come say hi if you ever see us around.
Yeah, like I mean, Tommy, I know you're in Ohio.
I'll be back.
Here. Yeah,
the Falcons schedule comes out in 3 weeks, I think. So I'll figure my trip out.
Cool.
There you go. So Mark got it 3-1, Sprawl 2-1. Bo saying if Yako's in 2-2, without him is 3-1 Miami. Bruno coming in hot. Sist de Mayo is the most Americanized holiday after Cinco de Mayo. It's just very true.
Yeah. Very true.
Coach B, Brandon saying 1-1, which is very, very possible.
Yeah.
Bruno with Giakoumakis 2-1, without 1-1. Man, we got a lot of people jumping on this.
Yeah.
Justin saying just 2-2 because everything since Columbus.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and obviously tweet us at Scarves and Spikes with your predictions. You guys know our Twitter handles. I'm SH Wright. Tyler's ATL Pilgrim and Tommy's Tommy ATL 96. So let us know your predictions.
Absolutely. Last thing, because I'm going to shout them out because I want them to get the exposure. And It'll be fun. It'll be a good time, and it'll be something really cool for you to go show off at the bins or wherever in your tailgating. But Carmen and Diego, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, she makes stickers, pins, other merchandise, other cool stuff related to Atlanta United. She's going to be doing a giveaway. We actually have a couple of things to give away, but the one we're starting with is a pin. We'll put it on social media here in the next during the next week. We'll have Jason Longshore on next Wednesday, to hop into it and talk with us. But make sure you're following Carmen and Diego on Instagram. It's carmen.and.diego. And on Twitter, it is at Carmen and Diego. So you go get a sneak peek of what you might win, and we will post what you could win during the week. So make sure.
Where's Carmen and Diego from?
She's in Atlanta.
Where in the world, though?
Where in the world? That's a great question. Where in the world is Carmen and Diego?
I got you.
You did get me, and I've been thinking it all.
I was gonna do it, but Tommy took it from me.
Dang it, man! Dang it! We got to restart this show now.
Yeah, they're gonna take away the giveaway after that terrible joke.
I mean, I'm sure she'd be rich the number of times she served that joke.
For sure. If you're looking, make sure you're on the right. I'm not going to show you what you're winning possibly, but this is the logo right there. So very obvious because it is very similar to Carmen Sandiego and the dog Diego. So
if you're listening, it's on their socials. So
yes,
cool,
good times.
Yeah, great show.
Thanks everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, Taylor Twellman, for coming on. That was a great time. Thanks, Jake, last week for coming on. That was also a great time, and for shouting us out on the broadcast. That was cool. So we appreciate it, guys. We appreciate all the support. We appreciate everything. We're trying to keep it rolling. We're trying to bring you guys content, both here and Patreon, and on the spaces too, because that is still us. Sometimes with a little more
vigor.
Yeah.
You left me all alone this week. You left me all alone by myself.
I came in and dropped
everybody.
I don't know if it was a bomb, but I was on for 5 minutes.
Yeah, you were there. You showed up. Everybody hung out with me. I got a 3-mile walk in. It was a good spaces, but man, those losses, especially like those big losses, those are some definite interesting spaces.
Yes.
Yeah, indeed.
All right. Any final thoughts?
Go team.
Good. Go win.
I'm good. Go win. Go fight.
Go win. Light the candle.
Yeah.
Light the candle, baby.
Light the candle. Here we go. It's been a good one. We appreciate it, guys. We will see y'all next week. We'll see you guys in a few days for the ratings video, and then we'll see you again next week with Jason Longshore.
Take care, everyone. Thanks for watching and listening. See you soon.
See ya.